Joining me now are the Conservative MP and Brexit supporter Owen Paterson and the Labour MP and Remainer Stephen Timms. Well, in a sense, we're begging the question there. I mean, you don't think we're going to regret it?
No, certainly not. And there's no surprises here. I mean, he believes very strongly in the project. The project was always a political project. They always wanted to create a unified state. Was it 4 years ago now, they had the 5 Presidents' report. They said they were going to move from currency union to fiscal union to economic union to political union by 2025. And he believes that very clearly. He's never hidden that, and I think this is all part of a piece. As far as I'm concerned, thank goodness we voted to leave, because we do not want to be part of this.
I mean, you're not offended when he says we'll regret it. You just accept that's his worldview.
Yeah, his worldview is that creating a European state is a very good thing. And personally, I do not want the UK to be part of that. We want to be part of the wider world. We want the very best possible relations with our European neighbours, but the future is the wider world.
Stephen Timms, do you think we'll regret it?
Well, I think we are going to find ourselves running into quite a lot more difficulties over the next year or so as the negotiations proceed than we were told we were going to run into at the outset. Whether that's going to change the balance of view in the public about whether we should have left or not, I don't know. But I think it is going to get very difficult. There is a real danger now that we're going to have duties imposed on things that we buy in from Europe and things that we sell to Europe, lots of customs red tape, a lot of difficulties that we haven't really been told about as yet, and I think people will be concerned as those realities emerge.
Do you think that's going to happen?
I really don't, actually. The European Union has a massive surplus with us. They have a huge strategic and selfish interest in continuing the current arrangements, which are tariff-free, frictionless borders. We have conformity of standards, which we've begun the legislative process to continue. I just don't see that these barriers will continue.
And yet they say, and they've said it repeatedly, that if you choose to leave, you can't be as well off, you can't enjoy the same benefits as they believe members of the European Union do enjoy. And that does point to some kind of block on trade, doesn't it?
Well, and I think you talk about they. I mean, I think there is probably going to be an increasing divergence of opinion from.
It wasn't just Juncker this morning. I was speaking to David McAllister, the CDU MEP. Yeah.
Well, very interesting. I mean, I think you'll see a difference between the Commission, who are driven by keeping the project on track, and I think intensifying it and accelerating it, because we've been the pebble in the shoe for years, and the constituent parts of the European Union. So you take someone like Ilse Aigner, who is now the economics minister in Bavaria. She's been warning very publicly that Bavaria has incredibly close and fruitful and profitable economic links with the UK, Mini and BMW and Siemens, all this. And she does not want to see any barriers created, and she wants to see trade continue.
But I think if you go and talk to people, I've been to Germany 3 times since the referendum, talking to MPs from all parties there, and the position they put is if you want the benefits of the single market, you need to obey the rules of the single market. And it seems to me that's not an unreasonable position for them to take.
What about, cutting off their nose to spite their face when it comes to trade?
Well, that is the position that they take. Any agreement that is negotiated will have to go through all the European parliaments. The view very clearly in the German Parliament, and I think very widely across the EU, is that if you want the benefits of the single market, you have to obey the rules. Now, we've been told up until now we can have the benefits of the single market, but we won't have to obey the rules anymore. I don't think that is going to be the outcome of these negotiations.
But Stephen, they sold us 950,000 cars last year, and I was in Hamburg just before the break, and it's very clear that there is a strength of feeling in Germany beyond the political consensus at the top, which I think may think more in terms of the European project. There are people worried on the ground. Deloitte have done a report saying 18,000 jobs would go if you had tariffs. And they've already had a massive hit, don't forget, with the reduction in the value of the pound.
Yes, but the head of the Association of German Car Makers was speaking yesterday. He made the point that the bigger prize for them is maintaining the integrity of the EU. If they take a hit on the UK, that's regrettable for them, but they will live with it. Because what's more important is keeping the European Union together.
Well, I think there are varying voices inside Germany. And it is obviously critical what happens in Germany at the elections. I don't think much will progress really until we see the new Chancellor installed. But I think there is much more variety of opinion below the surface, which I think we'll see come through.
I mean, it is true that the markets, in a sense, are betting against us because the drop in the pound is one of the reasons why, relative to inflation, living standards are now dropping.
Yes, but go back to the German problem. They have had a massive hike in the prices of their products selling here on the pound alone. Sticking another 10% on, which you would on cars, for instance, would present them with real problems.
I mean, certainly Owen is right about the economic logic here, but there is a very big political logic
if you
at work
applied total
as well.
economic logic, you wouldn't have any tariffs at all around the world.
Indeed.
It doesn't happen though.
Which is what we want to move towards. We will be major promoters of free trade around the world. We will get our seat back on the WTO. And I hope we'll be working with like-minded countries.
We don't know if we're going to get our seat back. Liam Fox is trying to get it at the moment.
At the moment we're passive. We're not allowed to vote and we're not allowed to move amendments and take action. We can take a real lead on the WTO in the future and be a real driving force for re-galvanising world free trade.
But in the meantime, we've got political realities, and I think those are going to cause the negotiations great difficulty over the next year, which will gradually emerge.
I mean, do you detect, and you've obviously been a minister and going to Brussels as well, I mean, do you detect in that phrase, regret, any sense of threat, any sense of we're going to make you feel sorry?
Well, my opening comments, he is driven by the project.
No.
So he will regret anything that slows up or damages the project. Removing us as a massive player, the fifth biggest one in the world, 10 billion contribution to their budget, that's a blow. I mean,
but it's also a blow not just to the prestige, but to the financing of the European Union that Britain is leaving.
Yeah, absolutely. So
and therefore, you know, is there an element of punishment in this?
Well, yeah, you're quite right about that, because I mean, I was around the last CAP round, which was the last one before there was going to be levelling up of the new entrant states in Eastern Europe to a similar level of agricultural support to the original states. Now, that's going to be quite tough on them now. That was going to cost someone a lot of money to bring them up. And, of course, there's a lot of projects. There are schools and bridges and bypasses all being planned on basis of money. So there will be a big haggle, and that's why there is quite a lot of threatening, I think, about the money. I mean, removing 10 billion net is a problem for them, and absolutely no doubt that will have an impact. And there will be quite strong tensions between the old countries and the new countries sorting out the European budgets.
Well, it certainly is a problem, but I go back to the discussions I've been having with Germans who say, we're really sorry you're going, we regret that very much, we wish that you'd stayed, but now you are going, you can't cherry pick. And they listen to what we're asking for. We want the benefits, but no longer to obey the rules. And they say, sorry, you're not going to be able to do that. And I'm pretty sure that is going to have to be the outcome of this negotiation. And what it means that David Davis is going to deliver, I really don't know. It isn't going to be, though, I'm afraid, the barrier-free deal that we were promised at the start.
Well, there is, for example, on freedom of movement, which appears to be the biggest sticking point, given the importance of controlling immigration. We've got Tony Blair coming in now, and as you said, others on the Labour side, close to Jeremy Corbyn, saying that maybe a Labour government could get de facto commitments on freedom of movement, which might prevent us having to make a total exit from the EU.
Well, what we're saying, and it's absolutely right, is we need to stay in the single market and the customs union, at least for the transition period, because otherwise we are into big barriers very quickly. My view, if I'd been running these negotiations, we should have said from the start, we want to deliver big changes to the way freedom of movement works, so that if you can come to the UK if you have a firm job offer in the UK. That's not how freedom of movement works at the moment, of course. I think if we'd been willing to offer that, then we could have had largely barrier-free access to the single market. Since we made it clear we're not going to do anything along the lines of freedom of movement, we were not going to get the barrier-free access that we want.
Is it worth...
Well, David Cameron tried that, and they didn't grant him very much, because they didn't think he was...
yeah, but it's happening now.
Now they regret it. So, I just don't buy this. We're in the middle of a negotiation. They're going to make all sorts of threats and noises in all sorts of directions. But it is massively in everyone's interest to have reciprocal free trade.
But do you think Tony Blair's perhaps right that they will make concessions on freedom of movement if approached in the right way?
Well, we want out. We want to get control of our borders back. It was an absolute integral part of the referendum campaign, was to take control of our borders and have a managed immigration from all around the world, not just Europe.
No, but if they did move towards giving us control over immigration from the European Union, it might be a good reason for staying in these trading areas, mightn't it?
No, because our volume of our trade to Europe is tumbling. We've gone down from 61% in 1999, it's 45% now, it's going to get to 35%.
Well, it's still the biggest bloc.
The European Commission says that 90% of world trade growth is going to be outside the European Union.
No, but I'm saying if there was an offer, just suppose there was an offer along the lines of what you say David Cameron's looking for, saying, OK, well, you can restrict freedom of movement along the lines Stephen Timms is saying, wouldn't that therefore be worth staying in this trading bloc for?
No, because we want to be able to negotiate outside. And of course, what's interesting about this, even today, Juncker's talked about doing an EU, Australia, New Zealand deal. It seems completely perverse not to want to do an EU-UK deal. No, but emphatically, we do want to leave the single market, we do want to leave the customs union, because we want to get back control of our laws, our borders and our money.
Well, Philip Hammond, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, said yesterday we want the transition arrangements to be as close as possible to the position we have today. He's absolutely right about that. We need continuing strong trade with the European Union. The only practical way to achieve what Philip Hammond said yesterday is for us to stay in the single market and the customs union, at least during the transition. And I think in the end, the logic of that will force ministers down that road.
Well, I didn't think you'd agree, and you haven't. Thank you both very much indeed.